Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Frank's Corner. Hope everybody's having a good day so far today. All right, so we are now on 8/23, 2025. This is the day where a lot of churches believe the rapture is going to happen, but so far it's been calm. But hey, there's still time. Day's not over with yet, right? But as of right now, everything is still the same. So let's talk. I've had this interesting morning with a individual on Facebook.
This is the guy everybody.
I found it interesting. Okay, so I want to go
No
through all
peace
this
with demons.
comments. Someone made a
Understand that
post.
Democrats are terrified right now.
Hear this.
American communists are terrified right now. They are terrified because one of their pets took things too far, killed somebody who was beloved, and now the right is filled with a righteous anger, and we want communism snuffed out completely in this country, and the communists know it. They know that that was probably too far. Uh-oh, oopsie, we look bad. Everyone knows we're demons. Now is the time to purge them from our shores. And as per usual, that it is that exact moment you will find GOP elected leaders from almost always from blood red states who step up and try to fade the heat for them. It's time for unity, guys.
And so the time for unity, the time for peace, it is now.
No. No peace with demons.
Okay,
Understand that Democrats are terrified right now.
this is
America.
the problem I find with this is this is 100% not true. This was posted on a relative of relatives of mine, not really my relative. Of course, he, I guess, apparently doesn't like my view about Donald Trump, so I just post the things I know about Donald Trump, and I want to go back and view all these conversations because it's interesting. It says, sorry, I do not support the president that is a convicted felon, comment pedophile. Most can ignore this, but I will not. I was raised better. That was my comment. And I posted this little thing about Trump and all the facts about Trump. 64 times mentioned Epstein files, 97 times pled the fifth, 34 felony convictions, just the normal, this is Trump. You are a fucking moron. You believe that? Also, my page is not a safe place for you. I didn't think I was in danger, but, then I just say, okay, laugh my ass off. Oh my God, fact check it. Trump's own words are everywhere that support it. I'm not blind or uneducated enough to say Trump is a good for this country. Sadly, although every comment about Trump is public record and you have to be intelligent enough to fact check it. And sorry, I'm not sure what you mean about safe. Seems a funny statement to make for someone in denial. Mm-hmm. It means that I will not be nice to you on here. Da da da. Don't confuse me with my cousins. Not a Christian. Won't turn the other cheek. Take that however the fuck you want. You are trash to me. Fuck you. You are a lying ass motherfucker. Okay. Laugh my ass off. I'm not Christian either. If they are examples of Christians, so don't think we worry me much, because trust me, I'm not part of that Christian group. In given you cannot prove the statements are false, I guess like most Trumpsters get upset. So prove that post above wrong, and I will come over to your Trumpster side. Otherwise, you can stay in denial. Prove me wrong, cocksucker. The burden of proof is on you. You can show no receipts. Go fuck yourself. Okay. My comment. Well, here we go. You're wrong. Get ready for a lot of facts. I like lazy blind people. All right, so the first one I posted, hush money ruling trial of his trial. It just talks about his 34 felony count convictions. It's all public record. Already done fucking yourself? Go fuck yourself again. So he didn't really like that proof. All right. Getting mad now? Too funny. You can't educate a person in a cult. Trump's comments. Oh, here's Trump's comments. During the 2025 interview with Howard Stern, Trump described going backstage at pageants he owned while the contestants were dressing, stating that we allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant and therefore I'm inspecting it. Now, this was his excuse for going and watching young girls get naked, I guess. I posted that fact. Okay. Then, his bankruptcy 6 times. So, uh, the Trump Taj Mahal went bankrupt 1991. The Trump Casino and Hotel 1992. Trump Plus Hotel and Casino 1992. Plaza Hotel 1992. Trump Hotel and Casino Resorts 2004. Trump Entertainment Resorts 2009. Now we're missing Trump Airlines that went bankrupt too as well. But okay, keep this in mind. This is just the way it is. How do you bankrupt a casino? I'm really confused because that's all set up to make money, not lose money. The machines are rigged to take money, so Trump managed to do that quite a few times. An idiot cannot educate anyone, dumbass. Are you pissed off that the second your comments on my post, I have seen you interact with my cousins and already know what a lying dumbass you are? I have nothing but contempt for liberals. Fuck you all. No, now, go fuck yourself for the third time. I must say, you have stamina. Okay, okay. If I'm lying, okay, so if I'm lying, how come facts support it? You see, although what you said is true, a cult following will ignore the facts. You are a great example of this. Trump is a convicted felon, con man, pedophile. He had a fake university and a fake charity for kids' cancer he used to take the money from people falsely. Again, fact check it, as he was sued for both. In your case, I guess ignorance is bliss. So, it's just, and here's, and then I decided, because, he did plead the fifth, 90 something times. So I decided to, one of my favorite Trump pleads the fifth said if someone was innocent, why plead the fifth? Okay, I want to read this, but said after the deposition, Trump issued a policy stating, addressing his decision to claim that he had no choice but to invoke the Fifth Amendment. He had no choice. And the reason why is because if he wouldn't have invoked the Fifth, it would have been used against him in a different trial. And he knew this, so he invoked the Fifth. And it's funny, Trump had previously criticized others for taking the Fifth Amendment, notably during the 2016 presidential campaign, stating, if you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment? So Trump himself made that statement. I don't know, I'm just at all because of all the stuff Trump does do. This was just another example of a dumbass cult follower of Trump's. I got plenty of my family that are that way. Richard Harold Hester, that's his name. He's not directly related. He's related to my half family, but not directly related to me. But I don't know. I just and so my proof, which is actual proof, you are too fucking stupid to see it. The fact that you are still knowing that you are stupid fuck, I say you are. Well, so anyways, that was just an interesting back and forth with someone that's not quite family to me, but family to someone in my family. But trying to debate with anybody on the Trump side of life is is not easy. They are so caught up and wrapped up into what Trump is true. I mean, even if you have the facts, even if you can show the court records, the court did this, the court did that, uh, they're going to deny it. They just deny. That Trump can do no wrong. That's the stupidity of Republicans. Well, let's be honest. That is the pure stupidity of Republicans. I didn't really get that at first, but the more as time goes by, the more I understand. The audio stream current B rate is lower than recommended B rate. We recommend says I don't know open whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means, but let's try to move things around and see if it gets any better. That's okay. I'll do what I can do. But let me continue. I don't quite understand how people can be so foolish when it comes to Trump, but I realize that they are. The speech. I listened to a speech. I don't remember the fellow's name. I'm sorry. It's Trump's Big Mouth, the one that does all the stuff for Big Mouth. He just speaks too much mess. But I'm gonna go back and see if I can't find the post on my page because he talks.
Apple and Tim. Your whole every migrant detained. Well,
But the guy that gave the speech at Charlie Kirk's funeral, he 100% focused on.
So I just received.
He focused 100% on just speaking more hate, but it is the long of a fascist speech. It's taken kind of right out from. It's taken right out from Germany, from what was going on during Hitler, and that's the whole point. You don't quite get that these people are they're nothing but communist fascists, but they're always pointing the finger at the left, saying they're communists. I don't get how they are. I don't get how they come up with that, or understand how they come up with that. It baffles me. I mean, to be honest, it just baffles me. How does someone come up to that conclusion? Primarily, I do know there's a lot of churches that are talking about the rapture. If it happens today, it happens today. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The Bible does quote that no man will know the time or hour. It will come like a thief in the night. It doesn't say we won't know about the time frame as in close to that time, or we're close to that time. We just won't know exactly when it's done. So I'm kind of sitting back and waiting. I did have a fella comment on my podcast yesterday. I did make a comment about a green Volvo with a nuclear bomb in it that's going to explode in the Twin Cobb Towers in Chicago. That would be the start of all hell breaking loose. I'm going to keep it. I don't know how he could be that specific, but I'm going to keep track of events just to see if that actually unfolds. So if that actually does happen, I have one or two ways of looking at it. Either he put the bomb there, or maybe he did have a premonition of it. And I don't think that people can't have premonitions. I think God will help people see things that's coming from time to time. I keep having a premonition that's I've had it a few times. It's really weird, and that's Russia invading the United States. I'm gonna put it out on here just in case it happens. I've had this dream a couple of times, and it's been very, very clear. And I'm not sure why whoever I'm talking to, when all the bombs of Russia are over the United States dropping bombs, where I sat there and said, fucking Donald fucking Trump is fucking president. Look at what's happening. But that was a premonition that I had. Interesting enough. I think I've had that dream 3 or 4 different times. I'm always in the same place. I don't doubt it, though. I can see what Trump's trying to do. It will be what collapses the United States. I don't care what those dick-sucking Republicans want to say about Trump's not. That is actually what he's doing. Most of them bastards are so stupid they think the tariffs is making us money instead of them paying the tariff. That's how stupid some of these people are. Tariff is just a tax on the taxpayers. That's all it is. But these dumbasses, well, obviously, these dumbasses just don't get it. Everything Trump does is golden. How the hell? This man running around on Howard Stern talking about how he could go look at naked young women because he owned a pageant. There was another show he was on where they called him a sexual predator, and he laughed and agreed to it. I forgot what show that was, but that's back in the day, too, back when Donald Trump was young. He is a sexual predator. He ain't changed any. Tiger don't change his stripes, buddy. But, what can you do? There's not really much we can do. We're stuck in this scenario. If the Supreme Court gives him any more power, because, fascism is a real thing. No matter what these people say, fascism is a real thing. What else can you say? That's about as real can be. And, we're in that time. I don't know. They've made a statue of Charlie, a bronze statue of Charlie, sitting at a table like he's debating somebody. Except for he had an issue when he was debating Dean Withers. Dean Withers just beat him up. Badly. Dean Withers just smacked him around, and there was really nothing he could do about it. It was so bad that he would never debate Dean Withers again. In every place, anytime Dean Withers showed up at one of his debates, he made a point to ignore Dean Withers, because Dean Withers would just chop him to pieces. There's a lot of people saying, well, these things were taken out of context with what he said. It doesn't really matter. The things he said, there is no context that supports it at all. We can be, in denial and say there is, but not really. There's no context that supports some of the things he said. Oh, excuse me. I didn't sleep too well. I had a restless night. That usually happens sometimes, so my mind gets busy. But what do we think about that? What do we think? What do we actually think is going to happen? I mean, I can see, and maybe that's just me, I can see where we're headed to hell in the handbasket in the United States, and it's rapidly approaching. I mean, rapidly approaching. And if we don't do something, and I mean something, to change the direction we're on, this country will no longer exist. It doesn't really matter what you think. You might will be one of them far right Republicans who think, oh, Trump's dictatorship will be wonderful. No, it won't be wonderful. Don't worry. Because the second you don't agree with him, he's going to hatchet your ass. And it don't have to be a very small disagreement. He'll come hatchet your ass. And people just don't get it. I mean, people really just don't get it, don't understand the point here. And again, it's worrisome for me. If I didn't have a kid, 17, and worried about what kind of country he's going to grow up in, and he wants to be like a cardiothoracic surgeon, I'm not even sure he'll get that opportunity the way this country's going. I think we'll go to hell in the handbasket, before he even gets to that point. He's still got it. This is last year high school. And, I don't know what else to say. Last year high school, I would think there'd be so much future in front of him, but I don't really see that future anymore. I did, even when Trump took office the first time, I wasn't happy. But I probably need to correct a few things. I was a staunch Ronald Reagan fan. I really liked Ronald Reagan. I thought Ronald Reagan had some good ideas. Again, trickle down theory didn't work, but at the time it sounded like a good idea. What we weren't really thinking about is the greed of rich people, because rich people, they are greedy. I mean, greedy, 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 greedy. And that's a sad part. So they're not really going to help anybody. Donald Trump's definitely not one to help anybody. He wants to make all the poor people pay for their rich activities. I mean, hell, he makes the country pay for his golfing. It costs us millions of dollars each time he goes to the golf course. That's a fact. And things are just the way they are. I wish I had more to say. I wish I knew how to deal with certain things, but I really don't. I just know that things are bad. Things are really bad. Things are just not going the way they should. But how can you tell what's going to actually happen? I post a lot of different stuff. I'm just kind of scrolling through to see if I can find the one fellow that made that speech that was so much hate. J.D. Vance. I mean, I find a lot of stuff where they're posting people. Barack Obama, he made this statement. I found it was interesting. If he would have done this in his term, the Republicans would be after him like quickly and be saying, "Oh, how can you? Or you are just this bad." But there's a double standard when it comes to Trump. So there's this, I guess, thing going on where the president's giving a speech to other countries, and he's rambling for about 20 minutes, and the President Trump tells the UN, "I'm really good at this stuff. You countries are going to hell." The sitting president just humiliated America's on the world stage. One of the most embarrassing moments of U.S. history. I mean, he is just out there. And I mean, there's nothing else I can say, really. It's sad. It's very, very sad. Oh, but hey, time's going to tell exactly what's going to happen. This is a fact. Time will tell. At the end, all of this will come to a head, and we'll see exactly what's happening. The problem I think I have is by the time everybody finally realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. There won't be no way to correct it. The damage will be done. I think Trump's done so much damage to our reputation already that it's going to take 3 to 4 decades probably just to correct it. And that's sad. But it's something somebody brought up to my attention. If all these Republicans are such good Christians, then if that is the case, and you're going to do like Jesus would do, Jesus would go feed the poor and the elderly, in those less fortunate, without complaining about it. And that's a fact. Jesus would tell you, love your neighbor as you do yourself. He considered this the most second important thing outside of love thy God. There's passages in the Bible that support it, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And I'll just go on with what I think. People are stupid. I understand people are stupid. People don't like the research. I understand that. People are too lazy to find out stuff for themselves, and that's okay too. It's all a matter of public record. Especially lawsuits and stuff. This is all a matter of public records. All you have to do is get off your lazy ass, Google search, find the cases, when they were, their years, what the outcomes were. That's pretty much all you got to do. It's not really hard. But, I mean, that's okay. Like I said, you can go look up the Howard Stern interview with Donald Trump, and you could probably still listen to it, because it was a broadcast where Donald Trump's, talked about, he's a pedophile. It's okay. He's a pedophile. He was on Epstein Island. He was there. They don't want to release that because he was there. It's okay. And you have one Republican line for another Republican line for another Republican. The whole point, I guess, here is if you think every Republican says one thing, then says something else, and then they're saying stuff to cover other stuff, and it's just, I'm trying to cover this, and I'll keep lying until I think I got it all covered, and the lie just gets bigger, 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 bigger. That's the problem with Republicans. The lies just get bigger, 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 bigger. Now every party's got their flaws, their problems. This is true. It's not just a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, a conservative, a far right, far left. Everybody's got their issues. That's with everybody. The problem, though, right now is the far right Republicans that are running things. They have the biggest issues. And you don't really have to agree. That's the point about life. We all have our opinion. We have a right to disagree with each other. And I think it's okay that you don't agree with me. It's okay. I will continue to try to give you facts, but you don't have to agree with me. In the end, you can just make your decision. Are you going to be educated enough to look at the education I'm trying to give you? Are you going to be just staunch, set into your opinion like Mr. Hester here? Because he's just staunch set in his opinion. He's still commenting. And, I want to go back and read the comment, but it's kind of redundant to keep going back and forth with the asshole that does not understand anything. It's okay. I'm guessing he thinks he's getting a tax break, but the bitch ain't in the tax bracket that he needs to be in to get the tax break. Actually, the poor people's taxes went up about 20%, the rich people's taxes. And that was only some of the tax breaks that you were given, like tips and stuff, are very short term. They don't last forever. But all the tax cuts given to the billionaires is a permanent tax cut. So what Trump did for you, he didn't do it for a long time. He did it for a very short time. that should tell you something all by itself. Yeah, he did just enough to say he did this, but he didn't want to make it a permanent change. Because, of course, he wants to come back and get your ass later. You're the poor people. Well, I guess that being said, I don't really have a whole lot more I want to say today. I am 100% honestly going to tell you I don't understand how people see stuff. I really don't. I just know that there's a lot of mess going on and we're in trouble. The country's in trouble. It's not going to get any better. Things are just going down hell in a handbasket. People can try to deny it all they want. I don't care. I still think out of all my lifetime, and I've heard about the end of days many times in my lifetime. Of course, each time someone said something, not everything was on the table in play. Most of the time, like, my generations before me, well, there's a lot of wars and rumors of wars, and God talks about, yeah, he does. He does talk about that, but he also talks about other stuff that goes along with it, the fall of Babylon. Again, I'll stress this. If you don't read Revelations, please go back and read it. It talks about the fall of Babylon, the fall of the United States. We are in the fall right now. It talks about a comet called Wormwood that's coming. That comet is already on the way. Google search it. Look it up. Everything is in the works. There's more things in the works right now. Trump blowing up a boat. I watched the video. There's no proof that there was drugs or anything on it of people in international waters. International waters, not in United States waters, but international waters, which is completely illegal. Venezuela's made a comment about it, but he'll get us into a war, don't worry. So you'll get the wars and rumors of war going on, along with the fall of democracy going on, along with the comet coming with us that's going on. And eventually everything comes to a head. This all does come to a head. And, again, I'm giving you my opinion. Not everybody, can agree with me. They don't have to agree with me. You don't have to be religious if you don't want to be. You don't have to not be religious if you don't want to be. I just look at, if you're religious, of any kind of religion, if you study the Bible, listen to what God says, read the commandments, then your view is not Republican. I watched many ministers, that have some common sense and understand the Bible will point out that Republicans are not the religious party they say they are. They're calling the left the communists when the right are the communists, and that's okay. These are things that went on during 1930s Germany. Hitler and Trump have a lot of similarities. Hitler was elected, Trump was elected. Hitler got this, big campaign of focusing about one group of people, and these are bad. And in the United States case, that was the Jews. Here in the United States, it's the Democrats. That's the only difference. He used a nationality. Trump uses the Democrats. And then he's after Antifa. Not because he calls it a terrorist organization. Antifa is an idea. It's against fascism. Is all Antifa is. It's just an idea against fascism. So I don't get how he's after something that doesn't have a group ahead. There is no entity. There's no corporate meetings. There's no meetings at all. It's just an idea. And I don't understand why he's such against the, well, I do understand why he's against the idea. He's against the idea because that's what he is, and he doesn't want anybody pointing out what he actually is, and that's okay. And, I'll make it a point again to say, you don't have to share my opinion. Nobody has to share my opinion about what's going on. You just don't. But you can argue with me. I like people to send me information. Go ahead. Tell me where you think I'm wrong, and then I'll go research it. That's the whole point. I researched some stuff earlier when somebody was talking mess to me on Facebook, and I just posted the facts. And in the end, no matter how many facts I put down that were facts, you could prove that they were facts, they still ignored it. And it's funny, anything that I see with a Trump supporter, because there's a lot of YouTubers and Facebook people and podcasts where they test Trump supporters. They test them. They test them pretty good. They'll come up with a scenario. I like the one where they come up with Biden went to this place and saw this 10-year-old girl and said, "Hey, I'm going to be dating you in 10 years." And the Republican woman, "Oh, that's a pedophile. We need to get rid of him." Da 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 da. And then when he came about and said that was actually Trump, it was funny how fast that changed. I watched them do this on video with many people that support Trump. They are one way if they don't believe that they don't say it's Trump. If you say it's, Obama, if you say it's Biden, if you say it's somebody other than Trump, oh, they're all against that person. They're about to tackle. But when you turn around and let them know it was actually Trump, the scenario changes. So to me, that's just a sign of being a hypocrite. That's about the biggest hypocritical move you can make. Oh, it's not good for this person, but if Trump does it, it's all right. So if Trump gropes some woman on the pussy, it's all right. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. If Trump has an affair on his wife, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So we want to push the 10 Commandments. We want to push the 10 Commandments, but we don't really want to follow them. And most of what Trump does is true. He uses religion, at least the part that gets the Christians intertwined into it, but he's not really religious. Understand this is a tactic that's been used for several years, maybe decades, centuries. I'm going to use religion because I realize religious people will follow me, but I'm not really religious. And nothing about Trump is religious. Again, 34 felony count convictions. He's committed fraud. He had a fake charity, a fake university. This is all verifiable. You can look it up. He was sued. There's records of the case. That's what bothers me about Trumpsters. There's actual records. This is public records, public knowledge. You can look it up and you'll see the cases, and he lost and he had to pay millions of dollars. But he did it. And here's the reason why he did it. He made more money than he had to pay back. That's the truth. He made more money than he had to pay back. And that's kind of like that thing he's got, send me $15 so I can go to heaven. I'm sorry, Trump, you can't buy your way into heaven. But oddly enough, people are actually donating to this. This man is a millionaire, multi-millionaire, and people are donating. Even with Charlie Kirk, again, I don't condone shooting somebody. I did watch some footage of that video today where someone slowed it down and showed something that was definitely worth looking into. They show two people standing behind Charlie Kirk giving hand signals to a person that's over to the, I guess if they're facing Charlie Kirk, it would be their right-hand side. And at the time the second person gave a signal, the guy that was standing over onto the right-hand side in a white T-shirt raised a gun. And he fired that gun, and you saw the recoil about the time it hit Charlie's neck. I mean, yeah, the fella posted it and slowed it down and was asking for someone's opinion about this. And, if that is, true, it doesn't look like it was altered. It looks just like somebody's video camera that they were taking. They were kind of looking at Charlie from this side. He's sitting over the chair on this side over here. You're looking from that direction. There's two people standing right behind Charlie. They're on the stage with him. And then right on this side is another person back behind Charlie. Kind of, I guess, the way Charlie was sitting, had been over to his right-hand side in a white T-shirt. But what you watch is one guy standing there with the cap on. He does a signal on his hat, that does a signal on his ear. And then this guy on his side steps forward and gives another signal by brushing his arm down. At about the time he brushed his arm down, the fellow that's on Charlie's right side was in the crowd, got up, picked up. You see his elbow come up with the gun like this. And as soon as that kickback comes, you see Charlie go like this. So I'm going to, given that was a live video, just something somebody videotaped there, it looks like somebody else shot Charlie, not that kid. And the two that were giving signals were on the stage with Charlie. So this lets me know that there's something fishy about this assassination of Charlie. Of course, my opinion, because if you look at his wife, she's been very vocal. I haven't really seen her sit down to grieve. Maybe she killed him. Maybe she had him killed, because just, money does strange things with people. And Charlie had good money. It's funny, Charlie went from a $26,000 a year job to a multimillionaire just getting in bed with Trump. And I find that interesting all by itself. And then her, I think someone said she's made about $20 or $12 million already in some, GoFund page she put up. But why? They're multimillionaires. Do they need more money? Of course, people are giving, and people think Charlie was the martyr. Charlie's not a martyr. I didn't know Charlie. Again, I'll say it. I didn't really know him. I had to go back and watch his videos, and then I understood that he twists the Bible quite a bit to his advantage. Like I said, he's debated with Kurt Withers and lost, and he would never debate Kurt Withers again because Kurt Withers is a very sharp individual, and he couldn't trip him up. That's the truth. Go back and look it up. There's some videos of him trying to debate Kurt. Kurt just stomps on him. This is just a matter of intelligence. So if you, pounce on stuff or makes, comments that aren't true, and, it's sad it came down to where it came down, but I don't think that it was an assassination by the kid. Just watching that video, I watched it about 4 or 5 times because I was kind of in awe. Oh my God. There's a guy, right behind him to his side with the gun. And that gun, he fired that gun. It kind of almost instantaneously, you see Charlie just buckle. He shoots back and buckles. But it was the signs, the hand signs that you saw from the people standing right beside him that kind of looked strange. So I guess if you add it all together, it looks like he was assassinated. But not for the reasons people think. If you look at the Trump assassination, or the so-called assassination attempt, there's a lot of funny things about that one. If you ever go hunting, I like to hunt, but if you ever go hunting, there's a few things that you look at about that. Okay, a bullet coming from the front of Trump, a bullet travels several thousand feet a second. Even if it brushed his ear, it's going to take a little bit of a chunk off that ear, trust me. Not just a scratch, but a chunk off that ear. And because the bullet's going by this way pretty fast, blood splatter's going to be here, on the shoulder, back of the neck, back behind the ear. But Trump, it was weird. The blood splatter's up to the face. If you look at that picture, there's some splatters of blood right up here too, on the top of the head. But coming from a shot in the front, at that velocity, that would make sense. It physically does, even by physics, it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't really think that was a real assassination attempt on Trump. The second one that they said was an assassination attempt, that young fella sat there and said he was protecting Trump and set up a perimeter, so that wasn't a true assassination attempt neither. The real assassination attempt came with what was it, Holtman, the Democratic senator, and her husband and their dog that was killed by a mega Trump supporter that dressed up as a cop. That was a real assassination attempt. He also had a list of 45 other senators he wanted to take out. And he did get to 2 of them, but they both survived. So that goes to show you right there, it's not really Democrats. And I've never seen in my life, and I've been around, over 60 years, have I seen Democrats storm the White House, the Capitol, to overturn an election. I've never seen that happen. Never. So if you're sitting here pointing the finger that the Democrats are violent, I've never really seen it. There's no proof as far as I'm concerned. Now, do I think that there ain't been Democrats? No. I'm fairly sure some Democrats killed somebody. Don't get me wrong. I really am sure that that's happened. But when it comes to political violence, I've seen more of that on the right-wing Republican side. And just the speeches that were given during Charlie's memorial were all hate. Let's divide. Let's put everybody onto the Democrats. And this is the way fascism actually starts. This is how dictators get started. They push all the focus onto one group of people. In this case, this group is all Democrats. All Democrats are communists. I've never seen a Democratic action that's communist. If you want to talk about immigration, all right, let's get realistic with immigration. Okay. Although Charlie did make a comment, Charlie Kirk, it was actually inaccurate. So let me correct his comment when he was talking about black people account for 13% of the population, which that is true. It's 12.6% of the population. But 58% of the crimes, violent crimes, actually, that's not correct. Black are more likely to be convicted of a violent crime they didn't commit. That's why when it comes to pardons and stuff, you'll see that they have a higher pardon rate, up to about 55%. But in the true statistics, about 70% of all violent crimes is committed by white males. So not black people at all. It's committed by whites. And there's statistics that's kept on, stuff you can look at that get you pretty close. Illegal aliens, again, they're 35% less likely to commit a crime. And this makes common sense. I don't care how you want to view it. The common sense to this is those people are here. They want to make money and send it back home. And then when they're done and they've got so much money at home, they go back and retire. That's what most of them do. For the time being, though, they might work over here 20 years, pay into the Social Security system, the Medicaid system, and no, they do not get benefits, which is another lie that the Republicans put out. Hell, at the time that I ended up getting sick, stroke, and all that I went through and had to get on Social Security, it was at that time was arm and leg. It was like pulling teeth for me to get on it, and I've worked here all my life. When I got better, I came off of it and went back into the workforce. It's just how it works. And I'm back just working. And I don't mind working. I have fun. I like my job. I go out and come home. I'm happy. I don't really get mad about it. That's to me the best job you can have. Go to one that you like doing, and then it's not really work. It's just a lot of fun. But statistically speaking, nothing that the Republicans put out were true. The DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and the stats they put out, they only put out stats that were already well known and acted like they saved us money. So, okay, let's get to that. If you saved us so much money, so far you've raised our deficit by $3.5 trillion, and you've cut social programs. So you've cut social programs, you found all this spending and stopped it, and yet you still raised our deficit another $3.5 trillion. So I'm trying to figure out where the savings is coming in at. And then we're making, as he says, trillions of dollars on tariffs. Okay. So even if that's the case and we're making trillions of dollars on tariffs, then shouldn't we be able to lower the federal budget by trillions of dollars instead of increasing it? Because we got all this money coming in everywhere, then why do we need more? What's the purpose of taking more? Or even if that's the case, what's the purpose of giving the rich people a tax break and throwing that extra 20% tax on to the poor people? So these are the things that confuse me a lot. I just, and people swallow it, And funny, Republicans make me laugh the most because you support Donald Trump's tax policies. Although Donald Trump, while Biden was office, we were still under a Trump tax policy from his first run at president that didn't expire till the end of Biden's term. But either way it goes, you uphold Trump's tax policies, not realizing you're the one paying it. And this is kind of, I would say pretty simple knowledge. If you pay more for a product coming into the country, the person that's paying that more cost is going to push that cost down to the people that buy the product from them. They're not going to absorb the cost. Walmart pretty much told Donald Trump that wasn't going to happen when he says they need to eat the cost. They said no. A corporation's not in business to help the presidency. They're not. They're in business to make money. Like any business to make money, they're not going to actually take a loss just because the president says so. And that's, some things that you should understand. Nobody's going to take a loss that owns a business. But we are going to pay. We're going to pay. It's going to be us that pays the taxes. Don't worry. And for me, a good idea is my coffee. I like coffee. I have it every morning. My coffee, not a joke, has went up $6 over the last few months. Then I realized that there's a tariff on my coffee coming in, so of course I'm paying more costs now. But I mean, it is true. Think about it. If we have all this money coming in, they're saying that they're making money all over hands and fists, then why raise our deficit more? Because obviously we don't need it, right? Now, the reality. This is the reality. And again, I voted for Ronald Reagan. I want everybody to understand I was Republican up to a certain point. I've not been a Republican for Donald Trump. I do remember his mama said he didn't know when to go into politics because he was too stupid. And that came out of his own mother's mouth. So if his own mother believed that, I need to believe that too. She knows him better than I do. But anyway, so if you go through history and look at our economics, you go and look, and no matter what anybody says, because they say the Republicans, actually our offices went back between Republican, Democrat all through our history, period. So not one party's ever controlled everything for a long time. It does flop back and forth. But if you look at their economic plans, you'll find that the Democrats save about $988 billion without touching social programs. That's what happened, without touching the social programs. Republicans increase the deficit by about $2 trillion, and they like to hack social programs. But Republicans are all about, including Ronald Reagan, believe it or not, he gave a tax break to the rich, thinking that they would actually pass that down to their employees, but that's not what happened. Rich people like their money, they're going to keep their money. So, through history, except for two presidents, I'm going to say two. I got to take two presidents to the side. Democratic Party has always lowered the deficit. Republicans have always raised the deficit, except for two presidents. I'm going to go back with the first one, Andrew Jackson, Democrat, that had us in a surplus. This is back in the early stages of our country, right after we won our independence. Our country was making money. And let's go back to that time. The president, vice president, congressmen, people, they didn't make money at their job. They were not paid to do their job. They did it for free. But the country was making money and they didn't know what to do, so they got us back in debt. That would be, it's scared when they put us in debt. I found that funny, but it's okay. The next president to actually do that, again, not a Republican, a Democrat, Bill Clinton. Say what you want. Man got his dick sucked and reelected. Bill Clinton had us in a surplus while he was in office. A surplus. We were making money. When he left office, we had a 13-year surplus set up, and George W. Bush Jr. killed that surplus in the first year in office. So no, historically speaking, the Republicans do not make us money. They do not. They don't save us any money, neither. And you can try to argue if you're a Republican, you believe that. I'm sorry you believe that, but there's nothing that supports you at all. And that's the problem I found with Republicans. If you put down the facts, they just don't want to admit it because this is all about party line, and my party is better than your party. But we all live in the United States. Every single one of us live in this country. So it should never boil down to parties. It should boil down to what's good for us as a whole. That's the whole thing. What's good for us as a whole. Quit being blind about your party line. Actually sit there and look at their economic plan. Look to see if it's a good, solid economic plan. Is it going to help us get out of debt? Is it going to make us money? Is it going to be damaging the poor? God, again, I'll say it, God, if he was here, he would not be trying to damage the poor people or the old people or the people that need assistance. He'd be just the opposite. Jesus was all about loving thy neighbor, loving people, but the Democratic Party has gotten the stigma that they're not about them people, which they really are. Most of what they do, if you even go back and look, they're always trying to do social programs to help the people in need. Republicans, on the other hand, are trying to cut those programs, don't want to help anybody in need. They just want to help the rich people. That's it. They want to help the rich people. And let me state this. The rich people account for about 10% of our population, which is about 30 million people, give or take. I think our population right now is 324 million people in whole. Although Trump's put out some numbers of that many people dying, Anytime he says something funny like that, I'm looking, damn, our entire population died. I'm still living. I'm lucky. My goodness, how am I still breathing? But, Trump's just not smart. I'm sorry. If you ever really listen to him talk, he's just not smart. He's just not. He just says crazy shit and people just swallow it. He's not a good businessman. He's filed bankruptcy 6 times. He bankrupt casinos. What really awes me about this is casinos. If you know anything about casinos, I read a book at how they're set up. But if you know anything about casinos, you know that business is set up to take people's money. It is set up to take people's money. There's impossible. They do not go broke. They do not. They actually make a lot of money. You might go broke going in there playing, but the casino's not going to go broke. Well, if I'm correct, he has 6 casinos that he bankrupted. And the only way to bankrupt a casino is put all the money in your bank account and don't pay no bills. That's the only way to do it. So that doesn't shock me about Trump. He knew, if I'm correct, the last time I checked, he still hadn't paid his campaign bills from Run 1, Run 2, and Run 3. He still owes states money. So this is the type of person we want running our country, someone that can't even pay their bills. That's interesting. Someone that can't actually start a business and make money, so that's interesting too. Yes, he does make money off his dad's real estate business, but that's not his business, that's an inherited business. He said his dad gave him $1 million to start off with, but his dad didn't. He gave him $10 million to start off with. That's, just facts. And then if you get right down to the brass taxes, Trump's dad got his money from the granddad. And you know what the granddad was? Fact check this one. Google search it. The grandfather was a pimp. He owned brothels during the gold rush. Brothels. You understand whorehouses? This is what Trump's grandfather did. That money was actually flipped over into real estate after the fact, which is how their money got started. But it was of an illegal way. It wasn't, my dad started this little business over here and it grew to 20 businesses or 30 businesses, or like, say, example, Walmart that started with one store and ended up the world's largest retailer. And, he started with a legal business and expanded, but that's not what Trump's granddad did. And again, Google search it. I do ride share for a living, and I've had many passengers, including Republicans. I say that they think I'm crazy, and then they Google search it and find out I'm right. And then they're at all too. Now some people say, "Hey, right on," but on the flip side, understand that these people ran women. Women were their money. You know anything about prostitution and how pimps actually deal with their women, you'd understand why Trump has the view he has of women. Because they treat their women shitty. Their women are nothing but money to them. All they want the girl to do is spread her legs, do what she needs to do, and so they can collect the money. That's pretty much how it works. So they don't give them any respect. They treat them like shit, and this is where Trump is with women. Trump's, again, I've seen so many different things back in the early days about Trump where he himself called himself a sexual predator, where he told Howard Stern he likes to look at naked, he goes and looks at the naked contestants in his beauty pageants, and some of these are underage. And don't think that he wasn't with Epstein. There is a video I saw today where the girl was talking about Donald Trump directly from the Epstein Island, directly. She talked about he wanted to do a rape scenario, and she was actually raped by him. She's breaking down and all kinds of just talking about it. But so I don't think that Trump's holy. Trump's not God. Trump's smart enough to use God. That's a fact. I believe it. Most demons are smart enough to use Jesus. They understand Christians will jump on board with that real quick. The end of days talks about, the Antichrist full of many Christians. So again, this is where I get my idea that we're probably in the end of days. I also get my idea of the fall of Babylon in the Bible and Revelations that puts us at the end of days, and the comet that's on its way here that puts us at the end of days. And me knowing that war is going to start, and like I said, I did have a fellow comment about a nuclear bomb in a green Volvo. I thought that was pretty specific and where. He just said he had a premonition, and I've had a premonition myself, or a dream that keeps coming back to me about Russia invading the United States. And apparently I'm still alive, sadly. I was hoping I wouldn't be here for any of that shit, but during my dream I'm alive. And I forget the fella I'm with because we're kind of running. Bombs are coming down, but I just looked at him and said, Donald fucking Trump's the president. because, if something was to happen here, Donald Trump is going to go hide like the bitch he is. How I know that bullet that fired at him on stage wasn't real is because that bitch wouldn't get up fist pumping anything at fucking almost 80 years old. And the blood splatter was in the wrong place anyways. I think that's a setup. I think he got one of those blood caplets they use in the movies, and when his head went down, he pushed the caplet, and that blood went this way on his face because that's the way it went. It didn't go this way. And, that was just a way to get him sympathy. And there's some other stuff coming up about votes, Democrats having Donald Trump as president marked on it, and I think New York was one, Arizona was one. And I don't think he won the election either. I think when he sat there and stated, because he stated it twice, first he stated that the Republicans rigged the election for him so he'd be president during the Olympics, and then he stated that Elon Musk knew the voting machines inside out. So I do believe he rigged the election, and it would make more sense because he's been hollering about voters fraud for 12 years, and, well, I assume he made voters fraud himself, and that's okay. Eventually it'll come out, and, when it does come out, there probably won't be anything you do. He's a dictator. When he sat there and made the joke that you won't have to worry about voting again, he's made it right. He's stated more than one time about if we're in war, he'll declare a martial law and there will be no election. That's a fact, buddy. He's also stated that he believes America wants a dictator. I've always disagreed with the no king day because I don't think Donald Trump wants to be a king. I don't agree with that. I think Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. We should have had a no dictatorship day. That's what we should have had. But instead we had a no king's day, so okay. But I just, again, I think we're in a bad spot. I think it's going to get worse. I do not think it's going to get any better. When it comes to the illegal immigrants, y'all got to understand that, there's almost 6 million of them that work our farms because nobody white wants to go out there for $5 to $7 an hour and work sun up to sundown picking crops and stuff. And that's going to give us a shortage later. We're going to end up having some food shortages and stuff. And, if you understand our economics, we're a supply and demand economy. Where Donald Trump come in office and says, I'm going to lower grocery prices, that hasn't happened. I'm going to lower gas prices, that hasn't happened. And here's the reason why that hasn't happened. Anybody believed him was stupid. They're just flat stupid. Oil prices are controlled by OPEC. They have the majority of the oil on the market. So when they want to raise prices, you know what they do? They slow down production to put the amount of oil on the market out and lower it, which makes the cost go up. We can kind of counteract it a little bit. We don't produce enough oil here, but we can, start producing production increase a little bit to kind of counterbalance it. But if OPEC was to flat say, I'm going to only put out 100 barrels of oil a day, you want to know what would happen to the gas price? As soon as they made that statement, that gas price, even if it's already made, would jump to about $20, $30 a gallon. And they actually can do that at any time that they want to. And there's not really anything the president can control that. It don't matter how much power he thinks he's got. He cannot. That's with everything that's on our, because we are supply and demand economy, that's everything in our economy. Period. If we go out to the corn crops and nothing gets harvested, nothing gets out on market, then the $1.05 can of 15-ounce can of corn you got right now go up to about $40, $45 for that 15-ounce can. That's a fact. That's just basic economics. And it's kind of funny that people, as long as we've lived in this country, we don't understand the basics of economics. The president cannot control prices. That was only done now. During the Depression, the president did freeze all prices. And it's kind of funny. This is true. A lot of white folks went broke during the during the Depression because they had monies in banks and all. Black people could not put their money in banks and stuff, so they didn't go broke. They didn't go broke because they had their money on them, so they were the ones actually with money. Look it up. They were the ones less affected by the stock market crash back in the day because they had cash. They were ostracized. They couldn't do stuff like white people could. So that's just a little bit of history I should point out because that is true. That's why back in the time Cadillac was about to go under, and they started advertising to the Afro-American side because they actually had cash. And that's what pulled Cadillac out of almost being in bankruptcy, was black people started buying their cars because they could. All the white people lost their money during the Depression. So, especially all the rich white people. That's why you had so many people jumping out of buildings and stuff. They were just devastated. Didn't believe they got, all their money was gone in a matter of seconds. Trump, he manipulated the market too. We've probably had the largest stock market crash in our history in a single day because of Trump. And Trump, used that to gain more money, which is illegal, by the way, as a president. You can't actually do that. But, he did it anyways. He'd start talking about tariffs and get the stock market to crash. He'd sell his stuff before he made that conversation, and then he'd say it and watch it drop, and then he'd buy while it was down rock bottom, and then say, well, he's going to postpone this tariff so the stock market can come back up. He did it several times, so, no telling how much money he made during that process. It was probably a lot, though. But anyways, I've got to get to the real world and make my living and all that good stuff. Take care of this teenager I've got to raise. So I appreciate you coming out. This is Frank's Corner. I hope y'all have a good day. God bless you all. Trust me, I am Christian. I'm just not Trump Christian, apparently. I guess that's going to be the sad part. But God bless everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. Send me a message. You got something you want to talk about, I'll send me a message and we'll see what we can do with it. If I don't know the subject, I'll damn sure look it up. I'm old, but I'm not that crazy. I know how to research stuff nowadays. But y'all take care. This is Frank's Corner. Peace out. Y'all have a good day.